Okay, so our next speaker, and it is probably a little fortunate that Dave ended early because our next speaker likes to talk. Michael Gray. So Michael, he's a former colleague of mine at Thermo, but right now Michael is the CEO of Actus Analytical Incorporated, which develops spectroscopy solutions for public safety compliance, illicit drug detection, agricultural productivity, and other applications. He has 30 years of professional experience in scientific instrumentation using infrared spectroscopy and mass spectroscopy technology. Mike and his wife Nancy founded the Actus Foundation in 2018, shortly after the death of their daughter Amanda, who was killed by a poisoning of straight fentanyl at the age of 24. The foundation advocates treating the entirety of the illicit drug death epidemic in America, including the largely forgotten constituency of first-time or intermittent users. They have also founded the Synthetic Analog Awareness Coalition, an alliance of thousands of voices of fentanyl victims in America. And it's my honor to introduce you to Michael Gray.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much. So, is this the clicker?
That will advance your slides. Yes.
That will advance my slides. Okay. Thanks, John. Great to be here. And again, thanks to 908, for Kevin and to John and the team for having me here. As John says, we were colleagues some time ago. Many of us here at Thermo, we have these common roots, Bob Brush and my dear Maura here, who we all remember and love from Thermo days. Well, in the time I've been working with 908, I just want to start with a really great thank you. I started a public advocacy in 2018. I'll tell you that story in just a moment. But when I have worked with 908 and they have supported me in talks all over the country, I've had audiences from hundreds to several thousand at a time. A really blossoming career in speaking. And when I do, they supported it financially. They supported it with data, with help, and would say to me, don't worry about promoting the technology. That's not what this is about. This is about being good corporate citizens. So I really have to recognize that. A fantastic group, wonderful people. I do mention it in every talk anyway because it's so compelling. As Dave just showed us, there is no other way to deal with this fentanyl threat because of the extremely low concentrations, right? So there's just no other way to deal with it solidly. So I do mention it in every talk because it's just so necessary. With that, so this is a great gathering of very, very bright minds. I don't know how much I can teach you. Everybody knows a lot of this stuff. I'll try to give you some different perspective. It's all about perspective, okay? I think probably most people here are smarter than me, so I won't try to teach you a whole lot. But I'm going to try to give you a little different perspective and a little different way to think about this in your professional capacities, but then also maybe a little idea toward the end, because I see a lot of people here of an age who've got kids, right? And you got to think about this threat, what it means to us. What I'm here to tell you, and I'll start from the very high level. People think of fentanyl and they think of it as the deepest of the deep end of the pool, a cavern at the deep end of the pool in the world of drug and substance abuse that starts in the shallow end with a little drinking, maybe a little smoke marijuana, take a pill here and there. Ooh, cocaine? Well, that's further than I want to think about, okay? But the reality is fentanyl has found its way out of that deep end of the pool and all the way back around to the most shallow end of the pool. That's the message I want you to walk away with today as I go through some of this perspective. So what is the Actus Foundation? Actus Analytical is a company, as John said, that does infrared spectroscopy. We mostly work in the consumer product space. But in 2018, my daughter Amanda passed away from an acute fentanyl toxicity. So let's think about this a second. My daughter died of drugs. What? She wasn't a drug addict. We didn't have drug abuse problems in our family. My daughter was acutely mentally ill for many, many years, for her whole life, really. But the acute phases were in the last 5 years of her life where the poor child suffered terribly, terribly in those 5 years of her life. But through that, one thing that we did not have was a significant substance abuse problem. She did not have what anyone could categorize as substance use disorder. She wasn't an addict. So why was she dead from drugs? How did that happen? The people who die from this, right? They wear the army jacket. They got the rubber band around their arm. Greasy hair, they're in an alley, right? That's who dies, isn't it? What happened? So we started to think about this. What happened to our beautiful daughter? This is what she looked like in her casket. This isn't the before picture. And 3 years later, with the lost teeth and the sunken expression and pockmarks, and she died. This is what she looked like in her casket. Okay? This is what we're talking about. So what happened? So I started to think about it. There's some other dimension to this. Yes, I've heard the word fentanyl. I was around Thermo. I was associated with the True Narc. I knew what you people were doing out in the field and what you were looking for. I'd heard of these things. I knew that word. But how did it kill my daughter? I had to start asking that question. And in the process of learning, and I started to understand that this fentanyl was different, and there was something very different about it, right? Wake up to this. We've lost 150 to 180,000 kids last year. We all know the CDC numbers in the 93 that John quoted. There is very, very little argument to the fact that we must bias those numbers between 1.8 and 2x. Those numbers are dramatically underreported for a host of reasons. Now, that underreporting is very consistent, so they're wonderful numbers from the CDC, but they're biased 50% low. So we're talking about losing 150 to 200,000 kids in this country last year. This is a massive number. Otherwise, healthy, mostly young people. But that's what we're losing, right? The death rate was 30% year on year, as John just said. And look what's happening with fentanyl analogs, fentanyl and their analogs. Look what's happening. Look what's happening to all the other opioids. Disappearing, right? Disappearing is part of the death rate. It's all this fentanyl. It's displacing everything. Why? I go through a whole part of my talks when I do the longer talk and talk about the business drivers for fentanyl. Of course, it's a no-brainer. I have to go back to flat panels and tube TVs to find a business model so compelling when the flat panel kicked out the tube forever. This is how compelling it is. Who's at risk of this? Normal kids, regular kids, kids without significant problems. Heck, kids without problems at all. And I'm going to talk about that. That's the shallow end of the pool. The kids who only play in the shallow end of the pool, that's who's dying now. And they're dying at bigger numbers than anybody else. So as I started to think about this and I started to agonize through and trying to figure out what happened to my daughter, I'm thinking, I'm watching, I'm researching, I'm going all over the place. And I hit this talk in 2018 that was a recording, a video of a talk given in 2015 with 2014 data by a professor whom I've come to know very well now, a very prestigious guy at the University of Pittsburgh by the name of Don Burke. And he presents this data, and he presents what I'm showing here in the blue line. In 2015, he shows this data. And when he shows this data, everybody finds it interesting, as many of you might right now. I'm talking about drug death in America from 1979 to 2014. All drug death, millions of people, 5 decades of time. And what do we notice about millions of people in a random situation in 5 decades of time? Look how linear that is. Look how unbelievably linear that is. In fact, when he did an analysis of it, he found it was a 0.97 linearity situation. This is really linear. Why? Why would it be so linear? And by the way, if it's not linear to population, forget that. That doesn't track. It's linear. And Dr. Burke says, why is it linear? I don't know. Don't know that I need to know. Just that it is. So we have this very linear problem of people in America overdosing, taking drugs, overdosing, and dying. It's growing inexorably on this linear plot year after year after year. Why is that interesting? Why is that interesting? Because between 1979 and 2014, what did we do about the opioid crisis? Everything. We started the DEA, more or less. We started ONDCP. We started narco squads, thousands of them all over the country. We did medically assisted treatments. We did rehabs. We did big hospitals. We've done everything. We put everybody in jail. We let them all out of jail. We said we got to lock up the drug dealers. Then we can't arrest our way out of the problem. We got just say no, right? And yet, never affected it an inch. Just keeps on going at this linear progression. So what's the lesson I learned? Dr. Burke shows this at this point. This is the data he's got. And he says, there it is. And he says, so why is it linear? Don't know. Don't know if I care. What I do know is it is. So if we're here to answer the question, predicting the crisis, where's it going to go? Well, here's where it's going to go, right? If I've got something that's got millions of data points over 50 years and it's linear, what's it going to do? It's going to stay linear. Because I don't know why it's linear. It's bigger than me, but it's going to happen. Well, I'm watching this in 2018, remember? And he literally said in the talk, as I'm sitting in 2018, in the future, Back to the Future, I'm sitting there and he says, so what's going to happen in the future? He says, let's pick a date. He literally picks 2018. And he follows his green dotted line and he says, we're going to have 52,000 deaths from opioids in 2018. He says, do you believe that? He says, I do. He says, I'll give you 2-to-1 odds. I'll give you 3-to-1 odds. That's what's going to happen in the year 2018. He says, 2-to-1 odds, 3-to-1 odds. I'm sitting there knowing that's 50% low because we had 74,000 deaths that year. Why was he so wrong? Then it hit me. Then it hit me. Why is my daughter dead? Why is Dr. Burke not know what he's talking about? What's wrong with this picture? It's this. If I challenged Dr. Burke and I said, you're a fool, you don't know, you're off by 50%, you're a terrible scientist, he would say, no, hold on. He would say, there's a qualifier to my 2-to-1, 3-to-1 odds that every scientist in that room knew. Come on. It's 2-to-1 odds, 3-to-1 odds, unless the paradigm changes. So we had a paradigm shift. When I put this data up, so then what I did, I took his green line, and then I took the actuals out to 2018, and now I've taken them, as you can see, out to 2020. And what did I see? What did I see? I saw two things, right? I saw this divergence here from the linear plot we should have stayed on to this red line going up, which he couldn't see. It was already there in the data as he presented it, but it was tiny, tiny, tiny. It wasn't a trend yet. He couldn't see it yet. And we do have other little things that bump here, this little fentanyl thing in 2006, this little black tar heroin in 2010. We do have these little blips that absorb out. So he thought he had one of these, maybe, when he saw that data. But he thought it would fall back into linear. What happened? We had a paradigm shift. Thomas Kuhn, Structure of Scientific Revolutions, paradigm shift. When everything I know about a situation changes, because the fundamental environment it exists in changes. So all my variables are the same, but my answer is totally different. What happened? It's paradigm shift. So if I see data like this, that's supposed to go like this, and it goes like this, I know two things. I've got a paradigm shift. That's what this is. And that gray area data is a unique population. That's when it hit me. There's Amanda. There she is. That's the population. Who are they? Who are they? This was all substance use disorder and addiction. That's what was killing these people. Classical, what I now refer to as old paradigm overdose. I fool around with drugs, I get addicted, I use it for years and years. One day I don't care anymore, I take too much and I die. Or I come out of a 21D rehab forgetting that my resistance lowered, so on day 22 I take too much and I die. That's what all of this was, and that's what this is. Who are those other people? My daughter. All my partners in my coalitions, thousands of them, whose kids never did drugs, but they're dead. What is that? It's the non-substance use disorder. That's what it is. That's what it is, and it's still a distinct population. It's going away, and at some point in the future, there will be no more addicts dying because there will be no more addicts. Everyone dying will be a first, second, third time user. But for now, we still got a lot of these legacy addicts, and they're still dying probably in that linear fashion. But that other population, that's what's causing all the growth you hear about. It's this new population. That's what it's all about. People without substance use disorder. In the old paradigm, you fooled around with drugs, did it for recreational, rebellious reasons. Maybe you got an injury, you had a prescription, you took too much of it. A couple of weeks, you took a whole lot in a few weeks, and you got yourself what we call a chemical dependency. You didn't get good help for that chemical dependency, so it got worse and worse. And the next thing you know, it took a year or two, but you are now in the world of an addict, right? You are addicted. Forget about the chemical dependency. That's not the point. You have an obsession with chasing the high that we call addiction, right? So therefore, you become an addict. And over the course of the next 8 years, you go in and out of rehab, you try to get clean, you fall, you go in and out. Clean always comes on the nth time, never the first time. You're in, you're out. What happens? You've got about 10 years of the 2 years it took to get addicted, and the statistically average 8 years it took to die once you're addicted. You had about 10 years. 10 years of help, 10 years of chances. In the new paradigm, you fool with drugs for the same reasons. You're either rebellious, you got an injury, whatever, you want to party, recreational, and you die the first time you take it. Goodbye, gone, dead. Maybe the second, the third, maybe the 20th time. Nowhere near enough times to get addicted. This is what's happening. This is what's in that upper strata of the data. It's the people who never got that far. This is what we call the new paradigm of death. Why? Because of the rise of pills. This is really what's changing everything, and that's why that slope is going higher and higher and higher. It's the expansion of pills. China bans fentanyl in 2018. Great work by the Trump administration. Their heart was in the right place, but their brain was altogether in the wrong place. They took a simple situation of China making one chemical and complicated it by forcing China out of the business. So what did China do? They took the tax rebate for making illegal fentanyl and said, yes, Mr. President, we're going to stop doing that. And they moved it to precursor for AMPP, right? And then that precursor goes to Mexico. They teach the Mexican drug lords, monkey see, monkey do, how to make fentanyl. And now we've got a situation where it's broken up. It's now all into Mexico. Well, think about what happened there. We went from Chinese scientists separated by an ocean who were making the drug to it being right in our backyard on a continuous border by experienced professional drug traffickers, right? And they know something. They got these 3 to 4 million powdered users out there. We call those the junkies, the people who shoot, snort, smoke. Okay, these people are deep, deep into addiction. 3 or 4 million of them in America. But there are 25 million people abusing pills. 25 million people using those pill mills in Ohio and West Virginia, which were vector points to put pills all over the country, right? A town of 700 that got 17 million doses of analgesic opioid, right? And it's going all over the country. Well, the Mexicans see this, and they see that we've got an intention to stop that. So what do? They supply, they backfill it. They start moving into pills. And it's massive. Look at this. From the field office at Phoenix, 0 pills confiscated, opioid pills in 2015. 20,000, 54, 380,000, 1.4 million, 6 million, and we'll have over 10 million this year. That's seized pills. Interdicted pills, 1%, maybe, on a great day, 5, 10%. Multiply by 100. That's what's happening. That's what's getting into the state of Arizona. Pills, pills, pills. It's all about pills. Because when the Chinese simple scientists that they were making it, they didn't know what to do with it. But when the Mexicans got hold of it in 2018, it all went into pills because they know how to market illicit drugs. So it's all about the pills now. Everything's about the pills. And 1 in 4 seized at the field office in Phoenix had lethal doses of fentanyl. And they're not opioid pills. They are Vicodins and Percocets and Oxys, but they're Xanax. And they're Adderall, stimulant. Finding it in everything. Why? Because they got lots of it. They put it in everything. Why not? Because the pill vectors this opioid into the entire country, every nook and cranny. Sometimes I compare it in my talks to the Blob from the 1958 movie. Heroin, old paradigm opioid, was a one-dimensional killer of addicts. And then you put fentanyl in it, it was a catalyst that made it grow in 3 dimensions and kill everything it touches. That's what's going on. That's why the numbers are growing so massively. It's all about these pills. And it's the pill form factor, the one pill, one-time idea that took fentanyl from the deep end of the pool and moved it back around to the shallowest end of the pool. Heck, one party, one time. That's probably a shallower end even than marijuana. Okay, so this I have to notice. This is why it's so dangerous. This is why it's so toxic. This is why 1 in 4 pills are bad, right? Because the drug dealers try to mix this stuff, right? And they're not exactly PhD blending engineers of the pharma industry, are they now? There's some moron with no education and 2 playing deck cards and a bullet blender trying to mix this stuff up. No millions of dollars worth of mixing chambers, no FTIR, no PhD in physics. Just some idiot trying to do this. And so what does he do? He mixes this stuff. Well, homogeneous blending is really, really hard science, right? Really hard. I do a quote in one of my talks with the pharma industry who said, hardest thing they do. So he mixes it, and this is what he gets. Here's all this fentanyl here, and here's all this excipient here. He's nothing, right? So now he starts making his doses. Most of them have nothing in it. A few of them have a little bit, and his users don't like that very much. They don't get very high. These guy starts feeling a little something. Oh, boy. Here's the sweet spot here. We got right in around this part of the mix. We got this stuff. And then, everybody else dies. Oh, well. I'm a drug dealer. What do I care? I don't want to kill them, but if they die, so what? This is what makes it so dangerous. So picture these kinds of pills with all these deadly ones vectoring out into every place in America. Every kid who will take a Xanax at college, which some reports show is like 43%. Every kid who will take a Xanax at college is in the crosshairs of this, right? So what do we do about it? We're not going to stop it at the border. You want to put up a 40-foot fence from the Gulf of Mexico to the Pacific Ocean, maybe you got a chance, and then you can kill the economies of two countries. You ain't going to stop it at the border. Put it on the streets? Sure. But I don't know. I can't find a whole lot of interest in Washington to make this stuff nuclear on the street so that a trafficker gets put in jail the rest of their lives. It's very hard to sell. So what do we got to do? It's awareness. Why? Because awareness to the non-addicted, right? The biggest problem with awareness is if you're trying to tell addicts what to do, they don't listen. They're addicted. They're not rational. So the old Nancy Reagan, just say no, they don't care about that, but we can. We can get a lot out of awareness because we can teach these kids something. We can teach them something, right? They don't know this. They don't understand this. The kids don't understand. This is a message for everyone. Here's the problem. We are way too cavalier with pills in America, right? In America, we take pills for everything, and it's great. I mean, I went to school in a day when a kid with ADD was a dumb kid, right? He flunked in school, and he was never going anywhere. I let him dig a ditch. He's a dumb kid. Today, we can give that kid some Ritalin, some Adderall, make him normal, and who knows what he can do. He can change the world. That's wonderful. That's a great thing. But it's led us to become very cavalier about how we treat pills, and more importantly, how we share pills. I got to tell this story, and the irony is horrendous. My daughter died from a deceptive trick of giving her straight fentanyl that killed her. At the events at our house after the funeral and the several days afterward, we live in a very nice upscale community in Long Island, New York. People there are very reasonable, very well educated. 2 of my wife's girlfriends, 2, came to her at various points and said, Nancy, if you need it, I've got a Valium prescription. I've got a Xanax prescription. Would you like a couple? My daughter just died from a deception of fentanyl. You've just offered 2 of the leading tablets of fentanyl counterfeits in America. This is a problem. We're too cavalier about this. So the message is for everybody. We're lulled into this, I'm looking forward to the next talk to talk about counterfeit pills, because what we're lulled into this security by is this wonderful supply stream we have. Our pharma supply stream is squeaky clean. We've never had a counterfeit problem in America until like 2 years ago. And now it's all over us. And it still isn't the poor farmer guys, nothing they can do, it's Mexican drug lords. But it's still a counterfeit pill. They look really good. So this is how it vectored, right? We need to break that cycle. We need to break this cycle with messaging. And it's messaging for everyone, not just kids. Just one last thing back to before I get on to the actual message, one last thing back on my comparison of the paradigms. And just to convince you about a paradigm and set you up for the messaging, in social science, we have a specific kind of thought experiment we do called the magic wand question, right? I got a really bad social problem out there, and I say, if I had a magic wand and I could wave it over society, what's the one thing I would want to change, right? What's the one thing I would want to change? So if I go back to the year 2012 and before the new paradigm, if I had a magic wand for the drug crisis, what would I change? I would cure the disease of addiction, right? If in the year 2010 I could have cured the disease of addiction, all death by opioids would have gone away, because it all happened to people addicted. Now let's fast forward today, 2021. If I had a magic wand and I could wave it over society and make one thing happen, what would it be? Cure addiction? I haven't solved half the problem. And I haven't solved the worst part. I haven't solved the growing one, the expanding one, who are people who aren't addicted, people without substance use disorder. So what does my magic wand have to do today? What am I going to do? Well, I'm thinking about it with this pills and all this expansion. What if I could wave a magic wand, and what if every man, woman, and child in America beginning tomorrow would never again take a pill that wasn't prescribed to them by a doctor, left for them at CVS, picked up with their name on the bottle? What if every man, woman, and child would never again take a pill under any other conditions? Now we'd solve the new paradigm. Now we'd have a crack at bringing that whole red line down. One thing I want to remind you about my red line, it looks additive. Well, it is. The green line is what we still should have. What's the red line? Those red line people have been here forever. My daughter, mentally ill patient looking to self-medicate, people did that in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 2000. They didn't die. They weren't in that data. My 2 key partners in my foundation, one of whom kid never did drugs in his life, never took a drug in his entire life, Eddie Kobilis of New Jersey. He was going to a party. He was shy. There was a girl there he was going to like. He wanted to be calm. His friend said, oh, I got a Xanax prescription. 1 bar of Xanax, make you cool. You'll be calm. Great. Kid never did any drugs in his entire life. Took that 1 bar of Xanax. 1 bar of Xanax never hurt anybody. Killed him. Right? My other partner, poor girl was out feeding the hungry, fell through a step and shattered her hip. Couldn't get any drugs because of the problem and the prescribing practices being limited. So poor Tiffany, she was in aching, terrible pain, and her friend said, oh, my friend said she has a Percocet prescription. She'll give you a pill. 1 Percocet. 1 Percocet. 1 Percocet never hurt anybody. She's dead. So that red line, do you think people took a Percocet pill from their friend in 1970? Of course they did. Did people take a Xanax to be cool 10 years ago? Of course they did. They didn't die. That's why they never hit that data chart. Now, they're the people in the data chart. These are people who've been with us doing what they're doing forever. They didn't die before. So in the magic wand question, if I say my magic wand had to change, that's the very definition of a paradigm shift. It's the very definition that we're in a new paradigm, and it's the definition of the fact that if we keep putting the $1 trillion or whatever it is of economic activity at addiction, we're not going to touch this problem. We have to think differently. So there it is. So what are we thinking of? Our new paradigm awareness campaign is not the old just say no. It's not Nancy Reagan just say no, right? That failed, that communication failed for 2 reasons. It was trying to speak to the addicted and those who might become addicted. The addicted don't listen to anybody, and those who might become addicted never imagine they're going to be addicted, so nobody listened to the message, right? It didn't tell anybody anything they didn't know. You fool around with opioids, you're going to get addicted. Everybody knows that. Okay, so what? What are you telling me? This idea of the old paradigm, convincing someone that you fool with drugs, you'll become an addict, you become an addict 8 years, you'll die, is a very hard sell, right? Most people don't listen because they're either already addicted and they don't care, or they're not addicted yet and they can't envision that. We're not talking about that. It's the one-time thing. So here we go. Here's the message. 15 minutes could save you 15%. Who can finish that for me? On car insurance, right? Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. And if you don't know this, I don't know. You're not coming to my house, okay? You're living in a cave. Okay, everyone knows this. That was not an ad campaign intended to make us do something. It was an ad campaign to put a seed in our mind that Geico saves us 15%. So next year or 2 years from now, when I buy a new car and I look at the $500 bill and I think, oh, that's tough to pay. It could be $425. Let me check out Geico. It's a seed to stay in the brain for later. This is the messaging campaign I'm talking about. Saturation, repetitive messaging. Don't do it. Stay away. That kind of saturation messaging. This is not just say no. Just say no. We all know what that means. It was popular. It didn't do anything. It didn't change any behaviors. This would, right? Because these people aren't addicts. And they're not potential addicts. They're normal kids who don't know this. My friend Dan Schneider, does anybody know the Netflix show The Pharmacist? Has anybody seen that Netflix show The Pharmacist? It's a very dear friend of mine by the name of Dan Schneider. He's a wonderful guy, wonderful advocate. And Dan was telling me last week that he did a talk about 2 weeks ago in a junior high school, 8th graders, 200 kids in the hall. And he said, how many of you know someone, a family, friend, or neighbor who's died in this so-called opioid crisis? He said about 2/3 of the kids raised their hand. 8th graders now, 13-year-olds, whatever that is. Okay, then he says, how many of you know that the basis of that problem is this chemical called fentanyl? 10 kids raised their hand. These are kids in the crosshairs. These are the kids who are going to die in the next few weeks. Then he says, how many of you know that fentanyl is being put into pills that you might take at a party? No one raises their hand. The kids don't know. They don't understand this threat. They know there's something. I was telling Christina earlier, one of the trends I'm seeing now, I do this something of a spiritual ministry where I talk to the newly bereaved parents. I do this 1 or 2 times a week. Newly bereaved parents of all kinds, car accidents, disease, illness, whatever. Young people dying. I talk to the parents to get them through. And in the drug parents, the drug death parents, what I'm finding now is there's this new trend. First of all, the age is getting younger. They're averaging now 15, 16 in my world. But the other thing we're finding is this strange new trend we're seeing of finding a half a pill next to the kid. They have some sense that there's something there, so just to be safe, they crack it in half. But we know this. We know from our little dots on the screen there that they could break it in 100 pieces, it's still going to kill them. But they don't know this. That's the point. So let's tell them something that they need to know. What do you say? Let's tell them something that they need to know. One party, one pill, one time, that's all it takes. This is the slogan I'm going out with. This is my 15 minutes can save you 15% on car insurance. I want every man, woman, and child in America to know one party, one pill, one time. One party, one pill, one time. That's what it's going to take. And I want every kid to get this like the seed of that Geico. So that next year, next 6 months, when they're at that party and everybody's taking a pill and they go, ooh, I don't know, like that guy said, like 1 in 20 chance I'd die. Is everybody going to listen? No. Are some going to die? Yes. But we'll have an effective chance to make some impact on this. So that's the perspective I hope to give you. I hope as parents, as siblings, as family members, you'll absorb this, you'll treat it to your friends and neighbors and your family, and you'll let everybody know one party, one pill, one time is all it takes anymore. Please don't do it. Thank you very much.
Mr. Gray, first question from the virtual folks. You mentioned difficulty convincing Washington to change any laws. Have there been any shifts in legislation since that paradigm shift you spoke about, or are there any in development that you think would help?
Yes, there are, and I don't want to sell it short. We've done a lot of good work. The Trump administration was wonderful. They really were. We got a law passed. We did get a law passed last year for special scheduling of fentanyl and fentanyl analogs. The tricky thing in the law, remember, is this whack-a-mole game we can play with analogs, right? To put something on schedule, I need about a year-long process of an interaction between DEA and FDA. So it takes a year to get, let's say, fentanyl on schedule. And then, of course, they spin up an analog. Well, I can't ban that whole class of chemical. I have to ban a CAS number, right? So when the analog is a different CAS number, I need another year-long process. And the drug traffickers knew this. So we did put a law in place to try to interrupt that process. There's another one. Grassley just introduced a bill yesterday. So yes, there are things going on. And we do have friends on both sides of the aisle, so it's not a partisan issue. But we have good people on both sides. So yes, there are things being addressed, and I'm doing my affiliates are doing an amazing amount of work in Washington to get that message out there. So yes, the answer is yes, there's a lot going on. And we'll get the Biden administration to come to the table soon. I mean, I got to call a spade a spade. I mean, the Trump administration was wonderful. The Trump administration's drug czar is a very dear friend of mine. He calls me every Christmas morning. We get together all the time. We've cried, we've laughed. I've prayed with him in the White House. The new one, crickets, don't want to even talk to me. So, I mean, we'll get him around. We'll come around.
You mentioned earlier that fentanyl deaths are severely underreported. Why do you think the numbers from the CDC are so low?
Not just fentanyl deaths, drug deaths in general. And I won't use the terrible word overdose because it's the wrong word. Nobody in the new paradigm died in an overdose. But drug deaths in general are underreported. Why? Because in a lot of small jurisdictions, in a very predictable number of jurisdictions, the time and expense of that full toxicology is something they don't want to do. So they'll call it some kind of natural causes when they know it's clearly a junkie or something. They'll just call it by natural causes. So there's a whole underreporting. And the National Association of Narcotics Officers president, who's traveled around and studied this extensively, told me he believes that that underreporting number is somewhere between 50 and 100%. Anything else? You like it?
Yeah, I really like it.
Oh, nice.
Because what I see is I see all these, because I work on fire department, all the community do-gooders. I don't say that it's derogatory, but they're do-gooders. I say I really like your slogan a lot. I really think that's where it needs to be driven at. I think we've done too many putting committees together, and people really want to do the good. But like you say, when you spend money on something and it's not working, you got to take a new approach. And I really think you got a good idea there.
Exactly. And I'll say one follow-up to that's really good. One of the things I say when I talk to parents and I do these parent meetings is I say, look, the good news is we don't have to play the old addiction game. You got to stay away from drugs. You might get addicted. I mean, that was a hard sell. You're not moralizing to your kid. You're not telling your kid, don't do drugs, it's bad, and you're going to get addicted and you're going to get hurt. That old-fashioned, uncomfortable conversation where the parent's moralizing. No, here's the conversation. I just heard this guy give a talk, and 26%, 1 in 4 pills are deadly. And they look just like Xanax. No moralizing, no uncomfortable conversation. Look, I don't have to be the guy with the ponytail who's got a TikTok account and I'm talking cool to the kids, okay? I don't have that gift, right? I'm a fat guy with a cropped hair. Nobody's listening to me, right? Who talks a lot, like John said, right? All I say to the kids is 1 in 4 pills will kill you. You want to die? I don't know. I don't know what else to say. It's a simple message. 1 party, 1 pill, 1 time. Simple, simple message. Please, take it to yourselves. Bring it to your kids. Talk about it. 1 party, 1 pill, 1 time. That's what it's all about. Don't do it. Not only does your experience not count, I was at a marijuana presentation tonight. They call it Woodstock weed, right? People my age think of Woodstock weed, this 10% marijuana use smoke. Now it's 30, 35%. Now the kids have pace, it's like 100% THC. Oh, they don't understand. It's not like you parents don't understand what your kids are doing. Forget about us parents in the world of fentanyl. Their big brothers and sisters could do it. You can't do what your big brothers and sisters did because 5 years ago, a Xanax pill from your friend was probably a Xanax pill. Today, it's 1 in 4 chance it ain't. And there's a 1 in 4 chance it'll kill you. So it's not a moralizing conversation, not an uncomfortable conversation. Do this, you'll die. I don't know. That's all I got to say. 1 party, 1 pill, 1 time. Anything else? Yes? No? Thank you very much.